Hey, I'm Anthony Romano, and this video is going to tell you why you shouldn't eat before bed and why you should ultimately have at least 4 or so hours of space between your last meal and sleeping. I'm going to explain that in this video. It's going to help you build more muscle, burn more fat, get better, more restful sleep, and overall improve your life, your digestion, a lot of other, day-to-day functions in your body, okay? It's critical, and not many people do this or know the reasons why. Let's get into the video. Oh, and before we get into the video, like it, because if you do, that will make YouTube show my content to more people, and that's what you can do to help me grow my page. Also, subscribe and follow me if you like this stuff. Okay, so if you've seen my other videos, you know that I've helped people fix a variety of funky problems they might have had, that goes beyond the scope of simply fitness. So we're talking diabetes, we're talking PCOS and fertility issues, digestive issues, anemia, lots of other funky stuff that goes beyond the scope of fitness, but I'm marketing this as a sort of fitness thing. That's the most, presentable angle. But it's going to help you fix a lot of shit in your life. And the number one thing you'll notice, okay, if you're somebody with sort of ADHD-like symptoms, if you're somebody who has, hanger or troughs and peaks in the day of your energy levels and your fatigue and your hunger, a lot of times that comes from blood sugar. In your sleep, you are not meant to have a spike in blood sugar. You are meant to have stable glucose, and that's going to allow you to stay asleep and basically stay restful and allow your brain and your body to cleanse itself and heal. That is why sleep is the most restful and anabolic state, the most important part of the day, as people say. And a lot of times, if you simply amplify the quality of your sleep, you will get better in so many different areas of your life. So one, you will need less sleep on top of that if you implement some of these strategies. So the key starting point here is you want to leave around 4 hours of space between your last meal and bedtime. Why is that? Generally 3 to 5 hours of space between your last meal and sleep allows first of all, your blood sugar to stay stable. You need stable glucose to run the glymphatic system in your brain, which is basically a central nervous system cleaning function that basically gets rid of damaged proteins and allows your brain to actually heal. If you have a spike in insulin and blood sugar, you're not going to be able to do that. On top of this, your digestive system is pretty much asleep by the time, evening hits. Your liver is also asleep, basically. A lot of its functions are down-regulated, and again, this is the primary detoxification organ in your body. So when we're looking at circadian rhythm, that is the bigger picture here. If you've looked into Ayurvedic medicine, they almost look at the day in a circadian lens. They look at it as this time in the morning is meant for certain activities, this time of day is meant for workouts, this time of day is meant for rest and recovery, and your last meal, etc. So if you're familiar with Ayurveda medicine, this is going to sound familiar to you. But at the end of the day, you have to make sure you have a space of 4 hours or so between last meal and sleep, beyond simply the scope of blood sugar and insulin spike, because your sleep will become far more restful if you simply allow that amount of time. Your body does not want to digest food and break things down and mobilize your digestive tract, basically, when you are asleep. That is essentially meant for a few hours before sleep, and then you're supposed to go into bedtime with no extra activity, no extra work for your gut. Okay, your brain is meant to heal during sleep from all the activities, all the stress you've encountered in the daytime, and you will absolutely notice better blood sugar control if you sleep better as well. So that means less cravings, less hunger, less fatigue, less irritability, which also ties into a lot of my other content on stable glucose being basically your willpower all day long. And that's another reason why I'm a huge advocate of keto dieting and been doing it for the past 9 years, and fasting, prolonged fasting, all that other stuff. But if you're somebody who does OMAD, for example, 1 meal a day, you'll probably find that you eat later in the evening. If you are doing this, you want to create space before the last meal, primarily because of the glymphatic system in the brain. But one thing you have to know by the time you leave this video is that a spike in insulin is basically going to prevent any sort of repair in your brain or in other parts of your body if it's beyond, containment. So what does that mean? That means anytime you eat anything, you are going to get a rise in insulin. But whenever you eat sugar and carbs, your insulin's going to spike the highest. So if you eat a sugar-dense meal before evening, that's absolutely when you're going to encounter even more problems, because that massive spike in insulin is basically going to prevent any sort of neuro repair going on. So I'm going to, finish off with some details here about sugar meals before evening. Besides the fact that if you eat something fatty, the fats will stabilize your blood sugar, especially if they're saturated. And they'll basically they'll basically create a more restful sleep and prevent, you from waking up in the middle of the night, because that's the primary reason why people wake up in the middle of the night is from an insulin rise. That's also the reason why children might have a hard time controlling their bladder when they're sleeping. Okay, it's the same reason why people wake up in the middle of the night as adults and have to use the bathroom. It's because an insulin spike the last couple hours before bed. Same thing, except when you're an adult, you have the ability to, an extra, I guess, muscular control to not wet yourself. So if you have a kid, there you go. Look into that and apply it for them as well. But when we're looking at the effects of sugar before bed, besides the fact that you're not going to get as restful sleep, you're going to wake up hungrier, and you're not really going to find it easier to fast, which again can give you other benefits. The primary problem here is that your brain does not want to repair itself in the presence of a sugar spike. So this is all, think about it. When you hear me talk in my other videos about stable blood sugar, allowing your brain to run more optimally, or ketogenic dieting, providing your brain with more fats as the primary fuel, and your brain is made almost entirely of fat, and we store plenty of fat, it's the preferred fuel for the body, it's the default fuel for the body, because when you don't have food, that's the state your body goes into. The primary problem here is that when you are creating a blood sugar spike before sleep, essentially your brain does not want to repair. Why do people tell you that sleeping is the most reparative time of day for your brain? Because you're not consuming any food. That is the closest thing you're getting to a fasted state or a ketogenic state. And for clarity's sake, keto state simply means you're not eating sugar. It does not mean that you are dumping fat on everything. It simply means the absence of carbs. And the fasted state is an extended version of that, because you're not consuming sugar, but you're also not consuming anything. So you get into deeper ketosis. So that is a primarily constructive time of day, because your brain prefers to heal itself with fats and when sugar is not present. Again, because sugar can carry more toxins in it, especially if it's there's plenty of examples of that, okay? Besides processed sugars, besides even plant foods, they're not available half of the year. And granted, there's plenty of ways you can implement plant foods to great avail. Nowadays, the point is our brain is not meant to consume large amounts of sugar before sleep. And if you think about the fact that carbs don't grow in the winter, it gives us this element of seasonality to our metabolism and these sort of checks and balances between any excesses we would have had from too much sugar or things of that nature. So sugar before bed is basically going to prevent the effectiveness of your brain's repair, not only because of the lymphatic system, but also because your brain prefers to heal itself in the absence of sugar. And this is what I've been saying for years on end in my 9 years of keto dieting. But when we're looking at the context of everyday, day-to-day life, people who eat carbohydrates, which is fine. I mean, I do it occasionally too. But the point is, people who are on a carb diet all the time, think about it. When is your brain repairing? It's repairing when carbs are not present, when you're asleep. And ultimately, nobody, unless you're sleepwalking, you're not going to be eating carbs while you're asleep. So, or anything for that matter, and that's when your blood sugar is supposed to stabilize, your insulin's supposed to stabilize, because that is when no food is coming in at all. And that is ultimately, you can stretch that and apply it to eating ketogenic all the time and keeping your brain, free from glucose spikes in excess, even in the daytime. But at nighttime, your brain prefers to heal itself in the absence of sugar and in the absence of food overall. So anytime somebody tells you that fasting is bad for you, for example, enlighten them to the fact that all of the brain's most reparative functions occur in the absence of sugar and food altogether, right? So as long as you have enough energy in your body, so basically stored body fat or food that you ate the day before, you're going to be repairing. And even if we're applying this to a daytime element with fasting, chances are you have enough body fat on yourself to sustain yourself and basically provide adequate fuel for the brain. Unless you're somebody who's 4% body fat, you're going to run into problems. But not many people are at that level of shreddedness all the time. Okay, that is it for this video. Hopefully it was insightful for you. I wanted to make this one quick because people need to know about this. This is something that will benefit you by simply knowing it exists, rather than knowing all the fine nuances. You can watch my other videos to learn more about those nuances and the studies behind them in my other study and analysis videos, but there's also plenty of other research that I want to open your eyes to. So, like the video, follow me on Instagram and on YouTube, and, watch more of my other stuff. Peace.